morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Namah, Taku. I actually put together this presentation with Dr. Misty, Lambert, Dr. Retallick, Dr. Ulmer, and Dr. Opit. So the topic of my presentation today is the rate of adoption and factors influencing farmers' adoption of the hermetic storage technology in Dromaa. So post-harvest loss is actually a global concern. This is because about 30% of the food that is being produced doesn't leave the farm and gets to the consumer. Just in Africa, 180 million smallholder farmers do lose a third of their grain crops to insect, pest, rodent attacks. And this has been estimated to about $4 billion loss of food. So reduction of grain loss is actually a priority area for action. Maize is the grain crop we are focusing on today. So maize is a major grain crop that is produced globally to meet the increasing demand for consumption. It is also used as an input to the animal feed industry by the animal feed industry, and it is used for biofuel feedstock. In sub-Saharan African countries, maize is actually a key household input, household food. And a significant number of smallholder farmers are engaged in this production. And it is also a key input to the poultry industry. So Ghana is our area of focus. So in Ghana, maize accounts for about 50 to 60% of the total grain that's produced in that country. And maize is a key household foodstuff for a significant number of households. But the unfortunate thing is that research has found that between 5 to 70% of the maize that is produced is actually lost along the value chain, from harvesting, threshing, winnowing, storage, right up to the processing level. And research has found that 30 to 40% of this loss actually takes place at the storage level. And this has been attributed to the local storage methods that these farmers use to store their maize. So these pictures I actually took it while I was in Ghana. These are the different local storage methods that farmers do use. Some of them will build platforms in their kitchens. Others will put this maize in polypropylene bags, and they build small huts beside their houses, and they store this maize. The picture to my right is an on-farm storage method that's used at the farm level. So they do keep their maize here so that some moisture content can actually come out of the maize before it's being transported to the homes. So due to this local storage method, a significant amount of maize is being lost to insect, rodent, pest, and mold damage. So the hermetic storage bag, it's an innovation that was developed to help smallholder farmers in developing countries actually protect their maize during storage. So the hermetic bag is a thin, single or multi-layered plastic bag that creates an atmosphere that controls moisture and insects through reduced gas exchange. And the hermetic bags have actually helped eliminate the use of insecticides and pesticides that has been used by farmers that's detrimental to human health. So the hermetic bag actually helps to maintain the quality and the quantity of maize, which normally is market compliant. And it is more accessible and affordable to smallholder farmers compared to the silos. So what then is the need for this study? Research has shown that 5% of Ghanaians' population are actually considered food insecure, with 2 more million people prone to become food insecure. So the major cause has been attributed to the post-harvest losses. So farmers actually lost a significant amount of their maize to insect, pest, rodents, and this has forced farmers to sell their maize immediately after harvest at plummeted prices. This has also propelled millions of tons of maize to be imported into Ghana. So, given the benefit or the advantages of the hermetic storage bags that has been found to reduce insect pest damage by about 100%, then there is a need for us to mitigate maize storage loss by enhancing the adoption and the usage of the hermetic storage bag. So the purpose of this study was actually to identify where farmers are at in the adoption of the hermetic storage bag, and also to identify the different factors influencing farmers' likelihood and intensity of use of these bags. So we had 4 objectives for this study. The first one was to ascertain the different stages of the adoption of these bags, to identify the socioeconomic, the institutional factors influencing farmers' adoption, and the last objective was to identify factors influencing the adoption and intensity of use of the bags. So the diffusion of innovation framework actually guided this study. Specifically, we use the innovation decision process. So Rogers developed 5 stages, from the knowledge stage right up to the confirmation stage. But since some farmers in Dromaa did not have knowledge about these bags, we decided to include the no knowledge stage at the beginning of the framework. This stage was actually added by Lee in a study that was carried out in 2004. So we did some review of related literature, and agricultural innovations are seen as an important route out of poverty. But the adoption of these innovations is very low in most developing countries. We also did some studies to look at the different factors that affect the adoption of innovations. And those were some of the factors that were found to be determining factors or significant factors that influence adoption, like age, farm size, membership in farmers association, training, and others. So for the methodology, we actually used the quantitative cross-sectional research design. This is because we were actually surveying farmers at a specific time period. So the target population here were farmers who have been producing maize in the last 2 years. We developed survey instruments from review of literature. Also, we had communication with extension folks in Ghana, as well as from my own personal observations since I grew up in the farming community. So we adopted the used the multi-stage random sampling technique, which all of that you can just read from the table. For data analysis, data version 16 software was used to analyze the data. So we used descriptive statistics and regression analysis. So these results are based on, so we actually surveyed 217 maize farmers in 4 communities in Dromaa. So these are the results based on the number of adopters as well as non-adopters for the 4 communities. So from the table you can see that Soromani had the highest number of adopters, while Amasu had the least number of adopters. So we also, these are some of the results based on farmers' demographics. So you can see that male farmers actually dominate maize production in the studied area. So about 64% of male farmers have adopted these bags compared to just 36% of female adopters. And the average age of the farmer was 44 years old. So our first objective was actually to identify where farmers are at in the adoption of these bags. So as I said, we use the innovation decision process to help us identify the various stages. So from the results, you're going to see that 47% of the farmers are at the confirmation stage. So they have used these bags long enough to understand that they will keep using these bags. But it is unfortunate to see that about 17% of these farmers had no knowledge about the bags. That's huge, that's significant. So our second and third objectives were to identify the socioeconomic and institutional factors influencing farmers' adoption of the hermetic storage bags. So when you look at the socioeconomic factors, you see that on average, 54% of these farmers own their farm land with an average farm size of 2.59. About 50% of these farmers, or half of these farmers, were members of farmers association, and they do store their maize between 1 to 6 months. For the institutional factors, on average, 67% of the farmers had attended training on the use of hermetic bags. 98% of these farmers do own mobile phones, and 46% had access to credit, and on average 86% of the farmers have been served by extension agents in the last 5 years. So we ran some regression analysis. So we used the Opit model to actually identify the factors that influence farmers' adoption of farmers' likelihood to adopt the bags. We use the Opit model because the dependent variable was binary. So either you're an adopter or you are a non-adopter. And based on the results, we see that membership in Farmers Association, training, duration of storage, age of the farmer, as well as marital status were positive and statistically significant factors that influenced farmers' likelihood to adopt these bags. I highlighted training because for each additional training that a farmer gets, it increases the likelihood to adopt the hermetic storage bags by 86.3%. We also ran some ordinary least square. We use the ordinary least square estimation technique to actually identify the intensity of use of the bags. So for the results, we use the ordinary least square because the dependent variable was continuous based on the number of bags that farmers use to store their needs. So from the results, you see that farm size, duration of storage, as well as the quantity of maize the farmer sold each season had a positive and significant influence on the number of bags that the farmers used to store their maize. So what does the result tell us? So this result has helped us identify the different stages or where farmers are at in the adoption of the hermetic storage bags. So farmers who had used these bags and had identified the benefit, or they have seen the benefit, they are willing to keep using these bags. Attendance to training, as we said, was a primary factor that influences farmers' likelihood to adopt these bags. So policymakers, the Ministry of Food and Agricultural Organization in Ghana, other NGOs, the Post-Harvest Loss Innovation Lab, should actually organize training activities in order to increase awareness and knowledge about the bags. So membership in the Farmers Association had a positive and significant influence on farmers' likelihood to adopt these bags. So we encourage farmers to be members of Farmers Association. So I was in a team of the Feed the Future Post-Harvest Loss Innovation Lab. I traveled to Ghana. And in this picture, we handed over each solar dryer to the Poultry Association, which means that when people are in group, they benefit more. So for conclusion, the diffusion of innovation theory guided this study. 47% of the respondents had used these bags long enough and they want to keep using this bag. 17% had no knowledge about these bags. So we also looked at we identified the factors influencing farmers' adoption of the bags. As I said, we used the Opit model as well as the ordinary least square estimation technique. And these were some of the results that I had already explained about. So for recommendations from the findings, so given the significant role that training and the benefits and the effectiveness of the hermetic storage bag, we therefore recommend that future training or future training opportunities should be broadcasted to all maize farmers using appropriate communication channels and ensuring that they do send out multiple reminders so that everybody can be aware of these trainings. To increase the duration of storage by smallholder farmers, we also recommend that the Ministry of Food and Agricultural Organization in Ghana, as well as the other NGOs, target and build storage facilities and equip these storage facilities with hermetic storage bags. This is because in one of the communities, the Amplifiers Project had built a facility like this, equipped it with pigs bags, and farmers were actually using it to store their bags. Membership in Farmers Association actually influenced farmers' likelihood to adopt bags. So for future recommendations for future research, this same research can be replicated in the different regions in Ghana. Future research should also explore how extension agents do disseminate the knowledge and the information about the hermetic storage bags. And future research should also explore the role of NGOs in the diffusion of the hermetic storage bag in Dromaa or in Ghana. So thank you so much at this moment.
Thank you, Dr. Taku, for that presentation. What questions do we have? Please.
I've really enjoyed your presentation, and I appreciate the fact that you used higher level statistics to really get deeper into the issue or try to explain the variance of what was going on in that dependent variable. So thank you. Thank you for that. I have a question for you about the Amasu. Is that correct, the name? The Amasu?
Taku, Namah?
No, Amasu, the region.
Oh, Amasu.
Region.
Yes.
Okay.
How do you pronounce that?
Dromaa?
AMASU?
Okay, Amasu.
Thank you.
Yes.
You reported they had quite a bit less adopters than the others. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. So, actually, that was the community that I realized so many farmers had no knowledge about the bags. That was the community I had the greatest challenge to access during my field work. And because normally in Ghana, I came to realize that extension people serve as gatekeepers into the different communities. You can't just access farmers in the community unless the extension persons lead you into that community. And we had a lot of trouble trying to ensure that the extension person, take us to that community. So when we finally got him to take us there, that was a community that so many farmers, the farmers who were there that had knowledge about this bags, either came into that community with prior knowledge or they had friends in other communities who had told them about the bags, which means he was not doing his job.
Oh, wow.
But I was not there too.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think that must have been
Okay.
Which means what? I didn't catch that. Which means what?
He's not doing his job.
Yeah, the examination isn't doing his job.
Okay.
He's not doing his job.
Can I follow up with that?
Yes, that's
Because
right.
this fascinates me, and I mean, I can spend a time talking about this, but I don't want to do that. Do you think that individual is unique in how they were trained, how they're mentored, how they're continually professional developed versus the others in the other districts? I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
That will be a challenging question for me to answer because that was not part of my research study because I was like, I am not here as an investigator. I am here to understand what's going on, to collect data from the farmers. So I will not talk about professional development because I don't know how this is being conducted in the years.
No, that's fair. I'm just curious. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, staying on the same line to some extent. First off, I was curious about this 17% and this thing about can we really consider them laggards if they report no knowledge? Because, when, as Rogers tells us, awareness knowledge is first and foremost. First, you have to know something is aware to really make a rational decision about not adopting. Okay, so and then this thing of this particular area or community. So that's also one of the findings was there was a strong relationship between membership in farmer associations and adoption. So there wasn't much going on in that community regarding farmer associations as well.
Yes.
Is that true to say or accurate to say?
I'll actually say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they didn't actually have a lot of farmers association going on. They do produce different crops, especially women in that area. Some of them did indicate that their husband, because there was a Muslim community that was located somewhere like in the north part of the community. And some of them will always say, oh, their husbands go to attend.
Yeah, I was wondering about the role of culture too, and perhaps some significant cultural differences between the agent and certain groups in that community, and the role that was playing or not.
Yeah.
One more question.
It's very nice job. I enjoyed your presentation very much, and I think that this I know you mentioned to me yesterday, it speaks a lot to the fact that you're able to get all this data right in the midst of COVID. So kudos to that. My question for you is, you mentioned in your recommendations at the end that trying to get farmers more involved in the associations would be beneficial. And maybe you mentioned this, but is there what are some of the potential obstacles faced to get farmers to join into those associations? Are there any reasons, why would they, or why are they not already in associations?
I can provide an answer why they are not in the various associations, because that would be more of, because I've been talking with Dr. Misty for this far that one of the things we should do is to do a qualitative study, because during that process we can actually get more nuance into all of this. Because when you are doing a quantitative study, you have a set of questions that you want these farmers to actually respond to. But if you follow up with interviews, then that's going to help you gain more insight or more in-depth knowledge into what's going on.
Dr. Taka, thank you very much, and please continue these conversations later.
Yeah.
Thank you.